Now, taking a break from the unusual builds to take a look at something I would consider to be a little bit more on the competitive side, this replay from Coops versus Cool Umbrella. Quick shout out to Coops, he actually recently recruited Cool Umbrella, who's one of his practice partners, to also become a patron, as is Coops, so I just wanted to say big shout out to him. Thank you very much, and welcome aboard, Cool Umbrella. Look forward to getting some practice sessions in with you as well. Today, they're going to be facing off Norsca versus Wood Elves, which is a fun matchup, actually. It's one that I would consider pretty even. Although the Wood Elves are a very strong faction, Norsca's sometimes thought of as a weak faction, but they actually have a few pretty decent matchups. A few things to consider here. Number one is Wood Elves, yes, are going to heavily outrange Norsca, but Norsca in melee just completely overpowers almost anything the Wood Elves can throw at them. I mean, Berserkers will kill pretty much all the Wood Elf infantry. I think maybe, like, Blade Singers on the high weapon damage stance, but it probably isn't a cost-effective trade into Berserkers. You've got Throg here, who has also been seeing a lot of play recently. Throg offers some upside that Wulfric does not, mainly the regeneration and anti-large AP plus Frostbite. Wintertooth Crown is also awesome, very underrated item to give AoE Unbreakable. Pretty underrated effect. Like, you don't see, like, Light of Battle, for example, a little bit of a side tangent, but you don't see it super often, even though Area of Effect Unbreakable seems pretty strong in general. But we've got some Glade Riders doing some good skirmishing initially, Wild Riders and Glade Riders with spears as well, Sisters leading the way, some Dryads. Loex Trickster is going to be advancing into the forest. Speaking of which, we've got a big pitched engagement here between some Skin Wolves. We've got the Beasts of Tashnar mixed in here, more Wild Riders and Glade Riders. This is probably going to go in favor of Norsca, with the anti-large of the Skin Wolves fighting in sustained combat here, especially with the support of the Hounds sort of eating some of the hits for them that the Wild Riders otherwise would have been dishing out. But back to the kind of overall view here. The Wood Elves are definitely looking to kite as much as possible, but the Javelins, both on horse and on foot, do make that a little bit trickier. Certainly Wood Elves' range units do outrange pretty heavily, but Norsca's fast attack means that you often struggle to protect infantry skirmishers. So like here, going with all mobile skirmish, I definitely understand that from Coops, you know, with the Hounds and with Skin Wolves being very common in this matchup. Big, wide infantry lines, too, also can be a problem. Like, it can be tough to protect those infantry skirmishers. So here, Wild Riders pull back. They're going to get a regrowth, help them sustain some of their value. Norsca, for the time being, is just kind of eating the damage in a lot of cases, but also punching back pretty hard. The Berserkers now getting into combat against the Dryads. Finally, will get a nice, favorable melee engagement. They're kind of a little bit blobbed up on some regular Marauders here, too, but Berserkers will start to filter through and win those. They should win those, at least. Even though the magic damage of the Dryads is okay, in theory, against their physical resistance. Nice little awakening of the wood there on the Brutes, and the others will help keep them locked in on that combat. But all of a sudden, these Javelin Hunters seem a little bit exposed. They're going to eat a charge from the Wild Riders, a bunch of arrows from Glade Riders. I imagine there's, yeah, at least a couple of, one Hagbane tip mixed in there, which is smart. You get at least the poison from one of them without having to pay for it on all of them. And the Metal Sorcerer definitely feeling the effects of that. Gets a Scroll of Shielding, but this is a lot of fire to dedicate. I mean, he has only Final Transmutation and that scroll, which he just used on himself. So the other Shaman Sorcerer here is going to be able to continue to use his Spirit Leeches. It's one of the reasons why you take two casters against Wood Elves, because they have some really good character sniping potential, especially against lighter caster characters like that. They're now going to move on to try and snipe the other caster, but he's already getting some value Spirit Leeching here on the Sisters of Twilight. And some of that fire should be going into Throg as well. I mean, certainly Starfire Shafts, like I said, would have been good here, but would have been tough to protect as well. Infantry definitely going in favor of Norsca. Berserkers just mopping up a little bit here, advancing on to the next. One of the reasons why Wood Elves often here will go with more kite-oriented builds. Loex Tricksters did eventually make it over into that forest engagement and push the wolves out of the forest, but not before they were able to beat down quite a bit of the Wood Elven cavalry. So a big blob of Norscan infantry here. Probably want to try and, you know, again, since Cool Umbrella is now a patron of mine, just offered a little coaching tip. I would probably grab these shielded Marauders and just path them in this direction. Just grab both of them and just path them over to screen. Even if, you know, they're going to lose, that's fine. They'll just eat some of the shots here and push these Glade Riders out of position so they can't just fire free. It's a small thing. They're not doing that much damage. It's not going to matter a ton, or maybe it will. But especially on these Berserkers here, you want to try and protect them from that range fire as much as possible. Just a small point of coaching, I guess. Yeah, also over here, these Skin Wolves get wrapped up again. The Loix Trickster's extra speed makes them just so hard to get away from for cavalry of any kind of large units, even something as fast as Skin Wolves are. It's just, yeah, you give them an order to run away, and then somehow, like, you stop microing them for 2 seconds, and somehow the Loix Tricksters catch up. It can be very frustrating. Definitely has happened to my heavy cavalry many times that I have failed to extricate them, but here, this is a favorable position for the Wood Elves to be in to a degree. They're going to try and use up the rest of their ammunition here. Again, they're able to shoot in at pretty high-value targets as the regular shielded Marauders are still over here. I mean, they're eating some shots as well, but Sisters are just about out of ammunition. They have taken quite a bit of damage, but they've still got their Conjoined Destiny available, so they can get some healing from that. The Spellsinger of Life is also still basically perfectly healthy, getting screened now by some Dryads from those Hounds. Hound's doing a nice job trying to chase. You know, you could try and pressure these Hagbane tips, but very likely the range fire is just going to lead the Hounds to rout, since they're so low on leadership anyway. So I kind of like this, just keeping them out of range fire for the time being. No need to sacrifice the unit at this point. Yeah. But let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit through this end game kind of kite phase as the Norskins eat some of the shots and allow their regenerating units to regenerate somewhat, though. Keep in mind that is happening this entire time that the Wood Elves are using up the last of their ammunition, but the charge of the Glade Rider is now imminent. They're going to start to get in here and see if they can single out some targets. Frostbite of Throg will be a problem, so if they plan on cycle charging, that is. But yeah, the Sisters are going to have to be very careful of not getting sniped before that Conjoined Destiny goes off. Fighter dies popped, giving extra melee attack will definitely help out those Skin Wolves, going up to 64 melee attack. With that Frenzy, they've got 66 weapon strength, nice anti-large. They're actually not doing as much damage as you might think, but Throg getting a big old chunk of damage in there. He's got awesome splash attacks versus large. This huge contingent of Wood Elven cavalry will definitely suffer against him. And, you know, you've got Berserkers mixed in here as well. One thing, again, just from an attack targeting perspective, I guess, the Norskins, you'd want to issue an attack order for all your Berserkers to go after the Loix Tricksters specifically here, because none of your other units are really going to be able to fight them super effectively, and they will kill everything else, including Throg and all the Skin Wolves. So I don't know, I don't get to see, unfortunately, the red side's attack order targeting as I can for the friendly's quote-unquote side, right? Whoever sent in the replay, but it would be beneficial to just get all the Berserkers just to try and drag down. Loix Tricksters are taking damage. You can see some of them are in contact, but I mean, it's a little bit tricky with the Berserkers being so surrounded by cavalry anyway. You know, I'm kind of nitpicking here a little bit, but things are looking still very, very close. I mean, it's basically still dead even. We've got Hounds coming back in. Potential rear charge opportunity here, or you could use them to chase if there are any routing units. It does look like maybe a handful of cavalry is going to be routing. These Glade Riders actually pulling away, though, to try and get another cycle charge, or else help, you know, kind of bail out some of those units that are coming back. But here, this is actually really smart. The Sisters of Twilight come in. They're going to fight the Marauders just briefly, which actually procs the Conjoined Destiny. They take just enough damage to get it to go off without being in a risky situation at all. So they're going to now get the massive healing proc, whereas Frog obviously has self-healing, but it's a pretty slow trickle. The standard regeneration is only 4 hit points per second, so, I mean, his regeneration is not even as good as somebody like Volkmar or Sigvald or Boris that have the 8 hit points per second. You know, he's just going to heal slower, so you need more time for him to get to his healing cap. One of the biggest issues with Throg being his leadership, you know, not being able to sustain oftentimes until he can get to his healing cap. But let's see here. He's got good support. The Wood Elves are getting pretty low. The Conjoined Destiny did go off, so the Sisters are fully, not quite fully healed, but just about, which is now weighing heavily on the balance of power. But these Berserkers are still continuing to try and mop up the Loix Tricksters. It's a very bloody just pile of bodies right here. Very pitched late game engagement. The Berserkers, doesn't look like a lot of their unit models are actually in contact here with the War Dancers. Most of the War Dancers seem to be fighting Throg, which is not what Norsca wants. Again, if Throg were just to kind of path out and path back in, try and come in on the edge of this formation where he's not in base contact with so many models. I mean, I guess now there's only like a couple of War Dancers in contact with him, right? But Very small, seemingly tiny things in a late game situation like this can make a big difference. Sisters are going to dive in, but that last Wintertooth Crown, as soon as that wears off, the Unbreakable's gone. That is going to lead to army losses for Norsca. It was a great Wintertooth Crown, to be honest, to try and salvage, go for the last late game throw. Throg almost got it done. Very close at the end of the day. Honestly, great game. Big thanks to Coop for sending that one in, and also for recruiting Cool Umbrella to the patronage. Just awesome. Awesome day all around, I have to say. Fun build here, too. I mean, for the Wood Elves, this kind of makes sense to a degree here. You just try and not commit too much to melee engagements. You have one kind of good anti-large AP unit that you can throw in if you need to on a specific melee engagement. You want to avoid Berserkers as much as you can. Just use your cavalry archers to shoot, and that is basically what happened. Even still, though, one of these Berserkers, 1672 on the damage value. Brutes of the Hound, not quite as good. The other ones are pretty close to paying for themselves, but yeah, man, you do not want to fight Berserkers in melee as Wood Elves as much as you can avoid it with almost all of your units. And, like, again, the Sorcerer, one Sorcerer, 0 kills, 0 damage value. The other ones, just Spirit Leeching alone pretty much got 1,600 damage, or sorry, 1,600 value, 3,800 damage dealt. Almost exclusively, I would think, to the Sisters of Twilight. So really nice value there. It wasn't quite enough at the end of the day to finish them off. Maybe 1 or 2 more Spirit Leeches. It's tough to say. But Throg also got some really great value there. Can't really fault him too much for that. The Hounds, some mixed bag. Some of them did pretty well. Some of them did not do as well. I think at times they did get a little bit too blobbed up and could have been kind of detached to maybe chase routing units and play more into the numbers advantage that Norsca had. Skinwolves also doing very well here. Again, can't fault them too much. Very solid in this matchup. You almost more, I would think, would maybe want to go with 4 Skinwolves here. Get it? Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, all that jazz. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks again. See you next time.